Yo, what it is? Part 3, how I process the lead. Ooh, look, I rhymed there again. So usually with my lead vocals, I like to really get them organized and everything like that. As you can see right here, I have all of the, actually what I did is I actually imported my regular template, if that makes any sense. I turned my whole template right into a track preset. So I can show you guys how to do that. If you want to comment down below, I'll do a separate video with Inside the Playlist, how to show you like how to be able to import your whole like your whole template and everything like that into like any session that you want. Not session data, but actually like the tracks and the routing and everything like that. Okay, cool. So yeah, you see all of my lead vocals here. Let's look at my lead vocal chain. We're gonna bring everything in and out. The very first thing that I have right here is the L1 limiter. I love to use limiters for some odd reason in the very beginning because it really controls the vocal in a very transparent way. So I kind of use that to you know, just knock off some of the words that have a little bit more energy than others, because as you can kind of see here, you know, there's not no wild peaks or anything like that, or you know, anything that's too crazy. So that's something to always pay attention to with the way the waveform looks. If you have like a crazy spiking peak, sometimes I'll literally go in there and like I'll just manually pull it down, because it will make like the rest of the chain work a little bit easier, a little bit smoother. But the very first thing I actually had was like a limiter, just kind of working on some of those words that have more energy than others, kind of like really like tonally balancing the whole thing out.
Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista, cara a cara com os cria, segue a risca. Faz o crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista, cara a cara com os cria, segue a risca. Faz o crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha blood bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho, M4 fazendo a escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada é só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo no copo, prometo assim. Essa mina joga na onda do lean. Só malete dentro da suíte, mas se aqui no...
So you can see really the L1 is a very transparent processor, but what I'm really doing is using it to knock off some of those you know, specific words that have more energy than others. You know, different words like cut, put, cut. Some of the words that have constants, you know, and this is a different language. She's rapping in Portuguese. I actually been to Portugal. I actually grew up with a lot of Brazilian people, so I kind of understood that Portuguese is a very fluent language, but still there might be some haji, like it might be certain words that just poke out a little bit, but I still want it to be very musical. So I used the L1 limiter that was very transparent. And after that, we had the Mac DSP AC202. And people always ask me, Nick, like, why do you use the Mac DSP AC202? Well, the main reason why I like to use it is because it is auto function. So essentially what it does is it kind of works like a automatic vocal writer pretty much. So yeah, this will kind of do the vocal writing for you without actually having to use vocal writer, and just one click, bam. Okay, so usually with the Mac DSP, I'm watching my input. I'm not trying to get the tape compression. I just usually want some saturation. Now, sometimes the tape compression might happen, but it's okay. For the most part, I like to just get a little bit of that tape saturation. Makes it feel a little bit more smoother. And it also de-harshes the lead vocal. That's kind of like the nature of, you know, tape in general. So yeah, I like it because I get that little roll off as well, cleans things up. And then of course I use the 15 IPS, very neutral, and I use the modern tape.
No copo da beat, essas mina querendo meu fim. Elas querem o vulgo desde sim. Esse mano querendo meu feat. Pega a fórmula de fazer hit. Duas mina dentro do Jaguar, 35 pra não carburar. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de tinta tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os cria, segue a risca. Faz o crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo um alemão.
Yeah, so it really just kind of does like that level writing thing, makes everything kind of even. And after that, we have something like the Soothe tool, and I like to use this preset a lot and tweak it. It's called Female Vocals Full Range, so it's kind of like my Soothe, just kind of doing like a tonal balancing, cleaning it up and everything like that before I even hit my rough EQ, because, you know, it looks like he kind of already tracked with compression and everything like that, and I just kind of just want to clean out some of the parts that are just poking out a little bit, you know, certain words back to back are starting to give a little bit of honkiness, so yeah, I use this.
dentro da suíte, mas se aqui no copo da beat. Essas mina querendo meu fim, elas querem o vulgo desse sim. Esses mano querendo meu feat, pega a fórmula de fazer hit. Duas mina dentro do Jaguar, 35 pra não carburar. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista, cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia
Yeah, I really like it a lot because it kind of clears up the lead vocal. It just makes everything start to become a little bit more intelligible. And then it kind of works like another limiter, but kind of like on the high frequencies. You see like my priority right here, mostly is working up here and this upper range. So you just hear nice sheens, like you hear all the words, they sound so crispy and everything like that. But after that, you know, usually if I like to use my stock EQ, because if I was to take this out, you know, the soothe would kind of really make everything sound very dark and very muffled. So I like to use like a high shelf just to bring back some of that character, some of that articulation, and just notching out just a little bit of that low mid, kind of clearing everything up. And you know, if you stay in South Florida, you know, people who speak Portuguese and try to speak English, this is why making music is all about life. They always talk like this now, like they have a certain nasally thing that Portuguese people talk like. If you didn't know Portuguese people talk like that, like you would not kind of have that idea. But that's why I say music is about life perspective. So because I kind of already know Portuguese, I've been to Portugal, I kind of know like I gotta pay attention to the nasally part of the vocal and everything like that. So I had this little EQ move, and that's why I only did that. I only did that based on my life experience, just hearing Portuguese people talk English and just knowing Portuguese a little bit.
Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista, cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista, cara a cara com os crios, segue.
So yeah, just this basic ass stock EQ really doing the heavy lifting, making it sound mainstream. After that, I use something like the precision de-esser, and I love to use this type of de-esser because it's not a regular de-esser, it's a mastering grade de-esser. So I'm gonna do a separate video about that. I also have the Weiss de-esser too, which is another mastering grade de-esser. But the thing about mastering grade de-essers is that they're a little bit better than a regular ass de-esser because it was made to like de-ess like a harsh mix, like a whole mix. Where like, you know, Renaissance de-esser and the Waves de-esser, those were all made for just the vocal, but sometimes you can hear the release time. So I like this because it lets me adjust, you know, it gives me two options, at least to choose fast and slow, which kind of have different attack and releases. And also it just kind of preserves the signal a little bit. It preserves the signal way better. So what I'm doing is that I'm kind of like EQing into the compression. You see, I got a high shelf, right? And the high shelf pretty much is kind of like intersecting with the de-esser.
Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista, cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho, M4 fazendo a escolta do Jim. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada é só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo no copo, prometo assim. Essa mina joga na onda do lean. Só malete dentro da suíte, mas se aqui no copo da beat. Essas mina querendo meu fim, elas querem o vulgo desse sim. Esses mano querendo meu feat. Pega.
Yeah, so as you guys can kind of hear right there, it's really, really good. It kind of retains the whole fidelity of the vocal. That's why I like to use mastering grade de-essers. But we'll talk about that another day, for sure, for sure. I don't want this to be too long. After that, we had, this is how I usually get my vocals to sound bright but not harsh. So you see my de-esser is on like, what is it called? A shelf. You know, it's not like the regular notch band. It's like a shelf. And then after that, I have my, you know, C4 on high frequency limiter. So I kind of like to use like two kind of like, you know, pretty much shelf type of de-essers. And that's how I get my vocals to sound so smooth and so crisp because I'm using like two shelves, but they're working like very light.
Sem deixar pista, minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista, cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sumo sem deixar pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho. M4 fazendo a escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada é só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo no copo, prometo assim. Essa mina joga na onda do lean. Só malete dentro da suíte. Mas se lá que
All right, so you guys get the main idea of it. Of course, I'm using a little bit of that multi-band compression on the low mid to really like demuck his vocal, can I say? You know, just really helping me control some of that lower spectrum of his vocal. But yeah, I like the C4 because look, I get to control my attack and release. And that's why a lot of the times, you know, a lot of other DSs just don't sound good because you don't really get to pick the attack and release, you know what I mean? It kind of has a look ahead, but for rap music, it's just so fast, switching up flows and stuff like that. That's why I like to use, you know, the C4 and everything like that. Usually like a fast attack and a quick release, just nibbling at certain words. But, you know, it's a team effort. The SUV is doing the job. The Mac DSP AC202, the L1 limiter is doing the job. You know what I mean? They're all kind of sharing the workload all together, you know? Sharing is caring pretty much, right? So then I use the API Vision strip on his voice. I love the tone of the API. It's very modern sounding. But mostly here, I believe what we went with was just a little bit of that EQ, just to boost like a high shelf, just to get a little bit of brightness up at 15K, a little bit more presence, and just using a little bit of that sweep filter.
Minha mente é bandida e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo sem deixar pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho. M4 fazendo a escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada é só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo.
Just that one move alone, just a little you know, rolling off a little bit of that low and boosting a little bit of that top, and just the whole circuitry, the way the API sounds, it sounds so good. And I'm using the legacy version. I like the legacy version plugins because they're very clean, very clean. So I'm only applying a little seasoning here, a little seasoning there, you know, a little bit of, you know, oil here, a little bit of oil there. And then we have the RVox, which is coming in here, giving us a little gate and giving us a little body.
Tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo.
The fresh air, we have the fresh air coming in here, just making everything sound a little bit more mainstream. And, you know, just really helping the vocals have that polish on it. You know, I kind of feel like I'm a shoe shiner, a spit shiner when I'm using something like this, you know?
35 pra não carburar. Minha mente é bandida e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar.
So yeah, everybody and their mama knows what it does. It just breathes the fresh air. Okay, so after that, we have the vocal rider here. You know, what I'm really doing with this vocal rider, nothing crazy. I'm using it to like, kind of just like, you know, as like a stopgap, you know, because there's still going to be certain words that just sound a little bit louder. So I'm just using the vocal rider to even things out. We don't need to really look at that. Like, come on, it's a vocal rider. We know what it does. All right, so let's kind of look at this one-shot effect right here. I just had like a regular Fat Filter Pro Q, just rolling off low end, nothing crazy. Then we had the CLA effects, you know, kind of using these things to get a quick sound, using a little bit of filtering, a little fuzz, a little pitch widener, nothing crazy, just to kind of create a moment, specifically at this part of the song and everything like that.
Baixa, meu mano de AR, baby, vai te rasgar. Ele pensa na fama, eu penso em lucrar. Por isso ele oscila. Baixa, meu mano de AR, baby, vai te rasgar. Ele pensa.
Just something to give a little bit of depth, you know, a little bit of grit, a little fuzz, nothing crazy, nothing crazy. Then we had the Avid Lo-Fi as well, so I just wanted to make that kind of gritty, using a little bit of contrast against them bright lead vocals. And yeah, that's pretty much all we had for that one-shot effect. Okay, after that, we had the background vocals, and pay attention, like these right here, I had the ad-libs kind of like a little bit wet with some reverb, but then like these stabs right here was very dry. I used something like, you know, the Avid EQ1 just to give a little bit of grit and, you know, just kind of handle the positioning. And after that, we had an SSL strip right here. I just love using the SSL. Just cutting off some of that low, carving some of the mid-range like we already know I do, and boosting this a little bit right here so we can still hear what he's saying, give a little articulation.
Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo.
Yeah, so just really using that green band to add some presence. Now you can kind of hear like the reinforcement that the background vocals are giving. And of course, we had a CLA 76 quickest release because I kind of wanted to give a little bit of movement. I want my lead vocal to be sturdy, but then my backgrounds to just do that little flamming type of thing, that little movement. And that's coming down to the release time, you know? So kind of a medium attack. Just to make sure we can grab onto that initial transient of that background vocal, but for the most part, letting go of it really quickly. Like a little kid playing with a pedal ball. Knock, boom, boom, boom. It's kind of going back and forth.
Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista.
So let's move on to our ad-libs. Just the same exact thing from literally the background vocals, right? And that's kind of like how I like to glue stuff too, you know, maybe copying the settings once in a while. Using this Mac DSP 4040 limiter on specifically this one shot. You know, this part right here isn't too significant, but it's still a part of the vibe. I like this limiter because it's lo-fi and also kind of crushes the ad-libs. It's doing a little bit too more of these, you know, EQs just to position it, and a little bit of that soothe on that factory preset just so that, you know, kind of like all that distortion, that grittiness from the limiter doesn't pierce our ear. This automation was right here at you know, at this point in time. I put out like a one knob filter and I put it on the whole beat, and I kind of did that to Built's expense, but it's kind of like when you're hopping on a roller coaster and then now you come to that that really small hole in the roller coaster and we're at the top, kind of rolls you down. So let's look at that.
Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Quantos manos forjaram meu fim? Quantos dias eu fugi da morte? Inimigos tão perto de mim, mas é isso que me deixa forte. Eles querem vir levar meu jean. Bota a cara, mano. Equipando minha Tech Green. Mira laser, mano, red dot. Deixa ele tentar com os.
So it's kind of like front to back, you know, like I got this lead vocal in the front being very, 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 you know, in your face, talking to you. Then that little that little certain part just kind of seems like it's all the way in the back. So pretty much as an engineer, I'm being a tour guide. I just told them what up front was in that part right here, because the vocals sound very up front. You know, you can't hear the beat and it's very in your face. But then that little part right there, like just kind of gives you a contrast. Like it kind of tells you right here is the big bro, and then that little part, that little word he says the little brother. So I'm telling them what big and small is, you know. So that's kind of like what I'm doing right now in a situation like that, you know what I mean? And then after that, you know, we had the ad-libs, literally the same settings and everything like that. But the most important different thing about these ad-libs right here were I used the Mac DSP AC202 and I put it on a 7.5 IPS, which kind of, you know, loosens up the high end and everything like that. I changed the tape to vintage formula as well. So I think there should be a little compression happening.
Da suíte, mas se aqui no copo da beat. Essas mina querendo meu fim, elas querem o vulgo DGzinho. Esses mano querendo meu feat. Pega a fórmula de fazer hit. Duas mina dentro do Jaguar. 35 pra não.
So just using a little bit of that tape compression as well to kind of help that these ad-libs have a distinguishing sound. And of course, we had something like a L1 right here. I don't remember if it's doing compression or I was using it to get a little digital distortion. But that's what I like about the L1. Whenever I think about the L1, I'm always thinking about spicy hot jalapenos and shit like that, because it gives a little bit of that nastiness, a little bit of that, you know, like your nose is starting to sweat a little bit. So that's why I like to use the L1.
Da suíte, mas se aqui no copo da beat. Essas mina querendo meu fim, elas querem o vulgo DGzinho. Esses mano querendo meu feat. Pega a fórmula de fazer hit. Duas mina dentro do Jaguar. 35 pra não carburar. Minha mente é bandida e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra...
So really just kind of really like a baby, you know, turning the baby around and smacking the baby, you know, that's kind of what this doing into these little ad-libs. Even though these ad-libs are small, you know, that L1 is kind of just like hitting them upside the head just a little bit. Now I don't support child abuse, but you know what I mean, just tapping it ever so slightly, keeping it in place, you know, just in case they go a little bit, you know, out of their place, you feel me? So after that, we had 3 parallel compressors, nothing exotic here. We all know about this. The 1176 Legacy. Then after that, we had the CL1B. I mean, I've used this combination so many times because it just kind of does this 3D thing to the vocals, you know what I mean? And then after that, we have a distressor as well. So let's kind of look at them and bring them in and out.
Na pista, cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca, faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Quantos mano forjaram meu fim? Quantos dias eu fugi da morte? Inimigos tão perto de mim, mas é isso que me deixa forte. Eles querem vir levar meu jean. Bota a cara, mano, bota a cara, mano. Equipando minha Tech Green. Mira laser, mano, Red Dot. Deixa ele tentar com os faixa. Meu mano de AR, baby, vai te rasgar.
I don't know what it is, but those 3 parallel compressors, they just really help a lead vocal cut through the mix. So after that, we had a Valhalla vintage reverb, and this was only on our ad-libs and our background vocals. So, you know, that's kind of how I like to use effects to glue things together. So yeah, like this part right here had a Valhalla vintage reverb, but this part didn't. You see the ends right here, they didn't. So that's kind of how you can use like to glue and separate stuff. Maybe you share the same reverb with something and now it kind of has that same feeling that it's in the same space, but then you use a different reverb at this part that you want to make it distinguishing, you know, because like if you can hear the ad-libs between the ends, it kind of just sounds like they're different, you know what I mean? Like it's adding something new to the song. And that's what I always try to tell the artists do, like give me something new to the song. Okay, we done already had fried chicken from Monday through Friday. Can we please get grilled habanero seasoning now? Or can we please get honey garlic? Can you just switch up the flavors? So that's what I'm always looking for. Now the lead vocal itself just has like a room reverb. You can't even hear it. It's just there to provide a little bit of early reflections. Like you can't even really hear it at all. And then for our delay, we had this delay right here, which is a stock Pro Tools delay. Nothing crazy. Like you can barely even hear this effect.
E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca, faz crime.
So usually you got to listen to the music, you know, and the music will tell you if you can slip in reverb or not, because you already hear the and the pads and all the RMS and all the sustain. So it wasn't a situation where I could put in, you know, that much reverb and that much delay, but I did pick my spots with the ad-libs and stuff like that. And after that, you know, we had the little micro shift. I like to use this because this kind of like makes the vocal not sound too center. You know, it kind of makes sure that you're not concentrating too hard. You know, if you were to sit there and just look at something and have a staring contest with somebody, you know, eventually you would kind of have a headache. And the same thing kind of applies to your ears. You don't want everything to be too center. You kind of want to pick what you're going to put in the center and what you're not going to put in that goddamn center. So in a situation like this, I used a little bit of this AMS, this micro shift, to just give the vocal just a little bit of spread, you know.
Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca, faz crime perfeito, tu não entende. Depois de sumo, sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida, e hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca, faz crime perfeito, tu não entende.
Peanut butter and spreads it on the toast and just ever so spreading it out. So now that we're eating that peanut butter jelly sandwich, like every single bite, you can feel the vocal everywhere. You know what I mean? It's not just like plop literally in the middle. So yeah, I like to use that. And the last thing that I just wanted to talk about when it comes to, you know, this vocal that I have for this song is I actually went to my music bus and I actually used the F6. So usually I never do this, but I feel like the vocal needed to cut a little bit more. So I had an F6, right? And I just just did like a little hole, and just only the music, not the drums, not the whole beat, but just only in the music. And this is something I usually like to do when I have like a 2-track beat and I feel like the vocal isn't cutting through. My first layer of defense is always the 3 parallel compressors, because with 3 parallel compressors, you can have your vocal sounding real sturdy. But I feel like the F6 was needed in a situation like this, just because of all of the RMS and all of the sustain from the and the pads and the little bell and all the lo-fi sounds. You know, I kind of wanted the vocal to cut through a little more. So only on the mid channel, considering that most of the widening has already been done to the vocals, it's very harmless, only doing like a few dBs, like 1 to 2 dB, maybe 3 on certain parts, but it just helps the vocal really cut through.
De sumo sem deixar pista. Minha blunt bate forte igual King Kong. Esse nego vai morrer tipo King Kong. LW passa a visão do radinho. M4 fazendo a escolta tudinho. Eu tô zero paciência pra vacilão. Deu mancada é só vapo sem condição. Eu misturo no copo, prometo assim. Essa mina joga na onda do lean. E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista. Cara a cara com os crios, segue a risca. Faz o crime perfeito e tu não entende. Depois de sumo sem deixar pista. Minha mente é bandida. E hoje em dia eu só penso em lucrar. Esse pente de 30 tá fazendo o alemão voltar. Muita luta pra pegar nós na pista.
So now you can hear all the little crispiness and the little transients in between his voice just because of this little cut. So sometimes I like to cut something else before maybe I say, oh man, let me boost even more on his lead vocal to get it to cut through a little bit more. Let me just maybe cut on the music bus, you know? So there's times to boost, there's times to cut. So yeah, this is pretty much the end of the vocal. The client did request for the vocal just to be a little bit louder on the bridge, because you know that Transformer Optimus Mega Prime Def 3000 sound kind of came in and everything like that. So he kind of wanted it to be right there. And you know, that's what we did. Only just a dB, nothing crazy. So let's go over to the next episode where we are going to be wrapping this thing up. We're going to be talking about how we were able to use the master fader to really juice up and finish this mix. All right. See you guys in the next episode.